This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Done? Recording? Thank you so much, Rabbi Krause, for arranging tonight's event and for all the sponsors of tonight's event. It should be zchus for all of the sponsors, for the koilo, for the whole community. Lahagdol Torah Ladira. We know that no detail in the Megillah was written just to give you a better appreciation for the historical context. In fact, the penultimate pasuk in the Megillah, "V'chol masei sakva yigvorasoi farashas gdulas Mardechai, halohema ksuvim b'sefer divrei hayamim l'malchei madai ufaras." If you want to know the history, if you want to know the historical details, so the Megillah says you got the wrong book. This is not what Megillah Esther is all about. Cheskel Abramsky explains that this is a very important ending to the Megillah. That the Megillah is telling you that nothing in this book is written for a historical purpose. Every detail recorded in the Megillah is to give you a better appreciation for Hashgacha Pratis, for the Yad Hashem, for divine intervention. And therefore we are entitled to examine every pasuk in the Megillah, every word in the Megillah, every letter in the Megillah, large letters, small letters, and ask ourselves, in what way is the Ribbon Shloim al Yedei Nevi of HaKadoshim, in what way is the Ribbon Shloim illustrating to us Hashgacha Pratis? So there seems to be a detail given in the Megillah that doesn't add any appreciation for the Hashgacha. In Parak Beis Pasuk Zayin, Vayhi Oimenes Hadasa. And Mordechai raised Hadassah, he Esther Bas Doidai. She is Esther, the daughter of his uncle. So they were actually first cousins. Ki ein la avaim. The reason he raised her, she didn't have a father and mother. What exactly do I need to know that Esther had no father and mother? Of what significance is it? Does it play a role in the story? Doesn't tell us about Mordechai's father. It doesn't tell us about Mordechai's mother. Did Haman have a father and mother? Why do I need to know Esther had no father and mother? And the pasuk continues. When her father and mother died, Mordechai took her as a daughter or married her. And the Gemara in Megillah, Daf Yud asks on the spot that of course he married her after her father and mother died. It already said she had no father and mother. So if she had no father and mother, and Mordechai married her, obviously he married her when she had no father and mother. The pasuk is completely superfluous. This stanza, this line is unnecessary. The Gemara asks, Ki ein la'avaim uv'maisavi av'ima lamali Amar Ravacha Ibarta Meisaviha. When her mother was pregnant, her father died. Yoladata, when her mother gave birth to her, Meisa'ima, her mother died. So in other words, not only did Esther not have a father and mother, she wasn't just a regular garden variety orphan girl. She never saw her father. When she was conceived, the father then died. When her mother gave birth, her mother died. Esther never saw her parents. That's the meaning of the pasuk. So the pasuk is saying not only was Esther a Yesoima, she never saw her father, she never saw her mother. Who cares? So this is additional information that's completely inconsequential, does not add to the appreciation of the story. Why is the Torah, why is the Navi repeating again, Ein la avaim uv'maisa v'ima? What's the difference? But the Medrash continues. The Medrash makes another note of this. The Medrash in Tuma Kaimais, in Esther Rabbah, and in Eicha Rabbah, the Medrash brings on the pasuk in Eicha, Yisoimim ha'yinu v'yenav, Klal Yisrael cries out to Ribbon Shalom, we're orphans, we have no father, we have no parent. Says the Medrash, Rabrachia b'shem Rab Levi Amar Lohem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, Atem b'chisem v'amartem Yisoimim ha'yinu v'yenav. You cry out that you're orphans, you have no father. Chayechem, says Ribbon Shalom, I swear, Af hagoyel shani osid lahamid lachem b'madai, that the Redeemer that I'm going to prepare for you in Media, in Persia, lo yeh lo avaim, will also have no father and mother. You're complaining you have no father and mother, says Rebbeinu Shem, you should know. The Goyel will have to be someone who has no father and has no mother. Hadahu d'chsev, ki ein la avaim. So not only does the pasuk say Esther had no father and mother, not only is the Gemara adding that she never saw her father, she never saw her mother, the Medrash is explaining that whoever was going to be the vehicle through which Klal Yisrael would have a Yeshua had to be someone who had no father and no mother. Why? Why did that have to be? Ask Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz in the Aros Devash in Chelek Beis, number 5, Yesh Lahavin, Lama Davka Haya Hagaya Ba'ofen Halazah. Why did it have to be this way? I mean, you would have thought it couldn't have been someone else. Hashem could not have prepared an individual who grew up with parents. It had to be someone who had no father and no mother. Let's continue. Ish Yehudi Haya B'Shushan Habira. There's a Yehudi in Shushan Habira. Presumably Yehudi means he's from Shevet Yehuda. Ushmai Mordechai ben Yair ben Shemi ben Kish Ish Yemini. He's a man, Yemini, he's from Binyamin. So the Gemara asks, make up your mind. Is this individual from Shevet Yehuda or is this individual from Shevet Binyamin? The Gemara Megillah, Yud Beis Amid Beis, Kari le Yehuda, Alma mi Yehuda Kaasi. V'Kari le Yemini, Alma mi Binyamin Kaasi. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Aviv mi Binyamin. The Tata was from Binyamin. Ve'imai mi Yehuda. So it's interesting. Esther, no father, never saw him. No mother, never saw her. Mordechai, no. Mordechai's father, we know, Shevet Binyamin. The mother, Shevet Yehuda. Hafla v'fela, asked Rabbi Yonasan. Do you know how often the Torah gives you the name of the Shevet of somebody's mother? You know how many times in Tanakh it will tell you, his mother came from? And the answer is 0, never. Never in Tanakh will it say, by the way, this guy, the father was from X, and the mother was from Shevet Y. So what's up is all of a sudden we come to Mordechai, we need to know the mother is from Binyamin. Imagine that you're Gabbai, you go over to the guy, no, what are you? My mother's from Zevulun. Okay, very nice to know, but that doesn't affect, there's no nafkamina, what Shevet the mother. The only need to know what Shevet somebody comes from is what the father comes from. It's irrelevant what Shevet the mother comes from. All of a sudden when we come to Mordechai, we need to know what Shevet his father is from and what Shevet his mother is from. There's a klal in the Medrash. Medrash says a very interesting aside. That in order to overcome Esav, in order to overcome Amalek, the Rebbeinu Shalom will only deliver Esav biyad yadoi shel Rachel imenu. The Medrash says, if you look at number 9, Bereshis Rabbah, Pinchas b'shem Rav Shmuel bar Nachman, Mesiras he. We have a tradition. She'ein Esav noifel ela biyad baneha shel Rachel. Esav will fall into the hands of Rachel. Now listen carefully, not Binyamin only, not specifically Binyamin, because you would say, Binyamin didn't bow down to Esav. Yeah, but it doesn't say that. It says, Biyad banav shel Rachel. If anything, perhaps, it could be even Yosef. V'haya beis Yaakov Eish, beis Yosef lahava, or beis Esav lakash. Why does the antithesis of Esav have to come specifically from Shevet, from Rachel Imenu? Very interesting thing at the end of the Megillah. The Gemara Megillah discusses what exactly is Purim. It's Mishteh, yeah, for sure. Simcha, yeah. Is it a Yom Tiv? It's a Machlokes. Mordechai tried to make it a Yom Tiv. Klal Yisrael wasn't makabel it as a Yom Tiv. Are there matanos of Yonim? The first time, no. The second time, yes. Seems that the way Purim was supposed to be instituted, it wasn't exactly accepted according to the original plan. But in Parak Ches Pasuk Yud Zayin, it says something very interesting. V'rabim me'amei haaretz misyahadim. there were a lot of Gerim. There were a lot of Gerim. Is that a good thing that there are a lot of Gerim? I mean, did we pursue Gerim? The Gemara says we dissuade Gerim. We try to convince them not to join. The Gemara in Yevamah says, Kashim Gerim L'Yisrael Kesapachas. But the pasuk seems to imply that part of the salvation of Purim, part of the Yeshua of Purim, you wouldn't believe it! It's Mishteh, Simcha, Yomtiv, and guess what? Gerim also! That's a cherry on top. We got Gerim! That's a good thing? Were they genuine Gerim? Were they earnest Gerim? Why is this mentioned? Is this part of the miracle? You know, if you're a Rebbe, or a Rav, or a Rosh Kollel, and you're giving Shiur, it's very demoralizing when people are sitting there and they're falling asleep. You know that? They come, it's 9:15 at night, and they planned on staying up, and you're making your best effort to keep people up, and the guy's, he's already half in the Olam HaEmes. It's very demoralizing. But it's the good thing is, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because even Rabbi Akiva had a hard time keeping the people up. And apparently Rabbi Akiva, it must have been a late night shiur, after some dinner, so they scheduled it for 9:15. So Rabbi Akiva was sitting, and he was darshaning, v'nisnamnu ha-talmidim. Talmidim are dozing off. So Rabbi Akiva wants to wake them up. So I guess Rabbi Akiva pulled out, the most exciting story from his repertoire. Listen to what the Rabbi Akiva came up with. Rabbi Akiva, he's thinking, what can I tell them? They're half asleep. They already have to wash negel vaser, l'chol hadeyos. There's ruach ra. They can't even. So Rabbi Akiva comes up with this great idea. Rabbi Akiva says, you know why Esther was zoichet to rule over 127 Medinas? In the zechus of Sarah Imenu, that she lived 127 righteous years. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was tired and I heard that, I'd be out cold. That's so interesting. Saying these are Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim. They probably, go'inei oilam. This is going to keep, if they're tired, then you're going to need a lot more than this to keep them up. Why did Rabbi Akiva pull this out of his hat to be ma'or the Talmidim? So we asked 7 questions. We want to know, why does the Megillah tell us Esther had no father and mother? Moreover, why is it important that she never saw her father, never saw her mother? Why does the Medrash say that the Goyal had to be someone who didn't have parents? Why does the Navi tell us that Mordechai's mother was from Shevet Yehuda? Why can Esav only fall into the hands of Banav Shel Rachel Imenu? Why do we need to know that there were Gerim? And how does Rabbi Akiva wake up his Talmidim? So we're going to go to a famous Gemara, Masechta Taanis and Daf Chafei, the Gemara about Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. The Gemara says Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was a bona fide, certified tzaddik. He was the real deal. All he ate was kav charuvin me Erev Shabbos to Erev Shabbos. Yeah, he ate carobs. I don't know how anybody could ever eat a carob. It's like eating the table, But that's what he subsisted on, a carob. Okay. The problem was, his wife comes to him and she says, the tzaddik business is not working out for the mishpacha. That doesn't work for us. He said, well, what do you want me to do? Sell used cars? What am I supposed to do? So she says, why don't you daven for something and they'll give you something, minash shamayim. So he davened, and a hand came down from shamayim and gave him a golden leg of a table. So he saw in a dream, or maybe she saw in a dream, not clear, that all the tzaddikim in Olam Haba, they're sitting at 3-legged golden tables, and they're sitting on a 2-legged golden table. So she says to him, or he says to her, is this a good idea? You want this? You want to be in Olam Haba, and everyone's sitting on a 3-legged table, and we're the only ones sitting on a 2-legged table? So what am I supposed to do? What do I do now? He says, so daven, that the hand come down and take up the leg. Says the Gemara, they davened, and the hand came down and took up the leg. Says the Gemara, the Nes HaAchroin was greater than the Nes HaRishon. It was a bigger miracle that the hand came down and took the leg back than that the hand gave the leg in the first place. You know why? Because we have a tradition, heaven giveth, heaven does not taketh away. Famous rule, heaven gives, heaven doesn't take. Fragt Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz in another Makayim, there's a rule that God gives and He doesn't take away. If you ever been to a Levaya, we know the pasuk that they say, Hashem Yonasan, Hashem Lakach, Yishem Hashem Mevayrach, Me'ata V'yad Olam. Yeah, sometimes God gives and other times He takes away. What does the Gemara mean? The Nes HaAchron was greater than the Nes HaRishon, because Rebbe Shalom gives, He doesn't take. And what's the pshat that the tzaddikim in Olam Haba eat at a 3-legged table, and Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was eating at a 2-legged table? Comes Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz and he says, an earth-shattering yisoid, a life-changing yisoid, a yisoid that really breathes hope into anybody's life, and it's a yisoid in life in general. He said, Al shloisha dvarim ha'olam oimei, the world stands on 3 things, al Torah, al avoid, al gemilas chasadim. Why do you think the wife of Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa wanted money? What do you think she needed the money for? She wanted a nicer house, she wanted nicer clothing, chas v'shalom. The wife of Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa says, look, Rabbi Chanina, you learn like nobody's business. You daven like the Gadol Hadar. Very good, but there's one problem. In Olam Haba, we're going to have the leg of Torah, we're going to have the leg of Avodah, but when it comes to Gemilas Chasadim, every time somebody knocks on your door and says, I'm marrying off my daughter, you say, Hatzlacha Rabbah. I wish I could help you, maybe you could help me. Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa could not do tzedakah v'chesed properly. He didn't have the resources. So she felt that they're going to come to Olam Haba, and he's going to have the leg of Torah, and he's going to have the leg of Avodah, and the leg of Gemilas Chasadim. Unfortunately, Oines Rachmana Patre, but it's Lav Kamanda Avedami. He's going to be lacking. He's going to be missing. He's not going to have the leg of Gemilas Chasadim. So she said, please, we have only one opportunity to live in this world. Please daven that we should have resources to do tzedakah v'chesed. But says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, she made a big mistake and he made a mistake. Because she thought, like we probably think, that it's better to do a mitzvah than not to do a mitzvah. It's better to learn than not to learn. It's better to give tzedakah than not to do tzedakah. It's better to be smart and learn like a goyin than not have the capabilities and not be able to learn like a goyin. But they made a mistake because it's not true. Because if a person is limited by circumstance and they wish they could have, and they have a cheshek and a kisufin and a rotzain, I wish I had the yecholes to learn Kol HaTorah Kula. I really wish I could learn Kol HaTorah Kula. I see Rabbi Shimei Globman. You could if you learn Daf HaShavua. It only takes 50 years. But you'll know it. You'll know it. To listen to the Shiur also. If a person has a ratzon, a person has a desire that they wish they could have done a mitzvah, and the only reason they're not able to is because they're limited by circumstance, you've now tapped into one of the greatest mechanisms in Kol HaTorah Kula, and that is chishev lasos mitzvah. If a person thinks to do a mitzvah, the nenas, and they're limited by circumstance, male olav hakasav keilu asa. It's considered as if you did it. But says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, it's a tremendous chiddush. She thought and he thought that if they would have had money, if they would have had resources, and they would have done tzedakah v'chesed, they would have actualized the mitzvah, they would have done the mitzvah in reality, and that would have been on a higher level even than wanting to do the mitzvah. But that's a big mistake, says Rabbi Yonasan. Because wanting to do a mitzvah and being accredited with the mitzvah is much and far greater than actually doing the mitzvah. You're better off being poor, wanting to give tzedakah, than being rich and giving tzedakah. You're better off not having the intellectual capabilities to learn on a high level and wanting to, than having the capabilities and doing it. So you say, how could that be? So I would assume you have to say this is in a specific dimension and in a certain vein. However, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, anytime a person actually does a mitzvah, let's say you do a mitzvah, the mitzvah is going to be limited by human shortcoming. So let's say a person has a real desire to do tzedakah. He takes $100 out of his pocket and he gives it to the ani b'sever panim yafos ba'ahava b'dveikus. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, at the end of the day, he's a basar v'dam. So did he do the mitzvah with ahava gemura? Did he do the mitzvah with full yira shamayim? Is the ani a fully certified ani? Did you have in mind all the kavanos of the mitzvah? You're limited by human shortcoming. After all, every human being is a basar v'dam, and every mitzvah is therefore somewhat limited. But if a person wishes he was makayim a mitzvah, and now you tap into the great mechanism of chishev latzos mitzvah. How are we doing? Chishev latzos mitzvah, v'nenas malal v'kosvu lasa. Where are you getting the mitzvah from? Who's giving you the mitzvah? The Ribbono Shel Olam is giving you the mitzvah. God's giving you the mitzvah. When the Ribbono Shel Olam gifts you the mitzvah, He's not giving you your kind of mitzvah. He's giving you His kind of mitzvah. And the Ribbono Shel Olam's kind of mitzvah is a perfect mitzvah. B'chol diktukah, b'kavanoseh, u'pratoseh. The Ribbono Shel Olam will give you the most magnificent mitzvah. So it could be a person comes up, la'achar mea v'esrim shana, and the greatest chusim that a person has are not the mitzvahs that he did. They're the mitzvahs that he wanted to do, that he wished he could do, that he was limited by circumstance and he wasn't able to do. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, they made a big mistake. They thought they're going to go up to Shamayim and they're going to be sitting on a two-legged table, a table of Torah, a table of Avodah, and they're going to be missing Gemilas Chasadim. V'nahapoichu is just the opposite. Now that the Ribbono Shel Olam gave them the leg of chesed, and they were able to actually do chesed, their chesed was less. And the Ribbono Shel Olam showed them in a dream that upstairs in Shamayim, when they're going to be sitting in Olam Haba, their table is going to be a two-legged table. Because now that they're able to do tzedakah of a chesed, they lost tzedakah of a chesed. It was only beforehand when they couldn't that they had it. And now that they could and they did, they didn't. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, a person has to be very careful. A person says, I wish I was much smarter. If I was smarter like the Rogachover, I don't know, tonight's his yard site. If I was smarter like the Rogachover, and I would learn, first of all, says Rabbi Yonasan, if you were smarter like the Rogachover, you wouldn't learn like the Rogachover, otherwise Rabbi Yonasan would have made you like the Rogachover. The Ribbono Shel Olam ha'toy v'ha'meitiv knew you wouldn't be, so he didn't give it to you. But says Rabbi Yonasan, you should be happy in your limitations. You should rejoice in your limitations. Because through your limitations, through your circumstances, you can engender the Ratzain. And when you wish you could, the Ribbono Shel Olam gifts you the perfect mitzvah. The mitzvah in the highest sense. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, and this is where he is, I guess he diverts into a pilpul a little bit. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, you could declare, what is the best avenue of getting schar in this world? Is it sitting back, twiddling your thumbs, not doing anything wrong and not doing an avera, like the Gemara says in Kedushin, that if somebody has the opportunity to do an avera and they don't do it, they get schar. The Gemara says, Yashav le'avar avera noisim le'schar ka'isa mitzvah. Is that the greatest avenue of getting schar? Sit back, kick back, don't talk lashon hara, don't wear shatnez, don't say oinas dvarim, and then you're good to go. Or is the greatest avenue of schar actively doing mitzvahs, and if you can't do it, at least wanting to do it? That's the shaila. What's the best way to get schar? Avoiding lavin, or doing the aseh, or at least wanting to? Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, it's clear. Performing mitzvah saseh, or at least wanting to, is a much more important way of getting schar than avoiding lavin. I remember many years ago I heard from Victor Miller, Sechet Tzak Levracha. You know, the Gemara says in Baba Basra, there are 4 people who never sinned. You have Amram, Moshe's father. You have Binyamin, Yaakov's son. You have Yishai, David's father. Kilav, David's son. They never did an Avera. So I have a question for you. It doesn't say Yaakov Avinu never did an Avera. It doesn't say Moshe never did an Avera. It doesn't say David didn't do an Avera. So who's greater, Yishai or David? Avada David is greater. But Yishai never did an Avera. David, we have a record. Who's greater? Yaakov or Binyamin? Avada Yaakov. Yaakov's on the Kisei HaKavod. Binyamin's not on the Kisei HaKavod. So what's the pshat? You have 4 people who never did an Avera, but they're not greater than David, than Moshe, than Yaakov Avinu. The pshat is, it's not all about not doing an Avera. It's more valuable to do mitzvah saseh at the cost of, this week's Parsha, Asher Nasi Yechta. Somebody who's in a position to accomplish and does mitzvahs, sometimes there will be averos. Now you can't, the ends don't justify the means, and you can't go after a mitzvah if it's going to bring to an aver, but sometimes, remember Rav Miller used to give a mashal. He gave a very simplistic mashal. He said there are 2 guys sitting at a kiddush. So one guy says, Reuven says, pass the cholent. So one guy wants to help, so he passes the cholent and he spills the grape juice all over the guy. And the other guy was afraid to pass the cholent because he didn't want to spill the grape juice on him. So what should you be? Should you be afraid? Should you be afraid to spill the grape juice, or you try to pass the cholent? That was Rav Miller's mashal. Or he gave another mashal. You ask a guy, how was vacation? His vacation was amazing. I went to Los Angeles, and what did you do there? I got no speeding tickets, no moving violations, no taxes, no parking tickets. It was amazing. Yeah, but what did you do there? Nothing. But I got no tickets. So he didn't do anything. So he would say, and again, this is simplistic, that the job in this world is MS Kanei V'al Timkar. You have to accomplish in this world. The purpose is not avoiding Lavin, even though, yes, avoiding Lavin is a way of coming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because obviously it's a simplistic, but the point is, the Iker mechanism, the Iker method of gaining schar is a mitzvah saseh. The Talmidei of Rabbi Akiva, they made a little error, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz. They figured they'll come to the Shiur, they'll allow themselves to doze off, they won't speak Lashon Hara, they won't speak Oinas Devarim, they won't wear Shanis, and the Iker schar will be not doing an Avera. Says Rabbi Yonasan, the Iker schar is, you got to be up for the Shiur. That's the main schar. If you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah, either you need to want it, but obviously you don't want it if you're dozing off. How badly do you want it if you're dozing off? That was the message, says Rabbi Yonasan, that Rabbi Akiva was imparting to his Talmidim. But Rabbi Yonasan says a Yisoid Gadol. Greater is the opportunity of someone who wishes to be Mekayim a mitzvah than someone who actually is Mekayim a mitzvah. He says a few very interesting things. If you look at number 20, he says, Ruba de Ruba, the mitzvah saseh, we don't have anymore. He says, even the mitzvah of tzitzis that we have, he says, we don't have tchelas. He says, you should be happy you don't have tchelas. You know why? Because every morning when you put on tzitzis, you should be misoinen. I wish I could be mekayim the mitzvah of tchelas. And then Hashem will gift you tzitzis, not only lavan, with tchelas. Because you wish you could have done it. What's the purpose of reading the Parsha of Karbanos? Just to rattle off words? You say the Parsha, the Toida, and you try to engender, I wish this morning I had the opportunity to be Makriv a Karban Toida. I wish I could be Makriv a Karban Oila. All the Parshas of the Karbanos, when you daven Musaf, what are you davening Musaf for? Oh, I remember 2,000 years ago in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, they took cows and they slaughtered them. So I remembered it last week. What am I doing it this week for? It's not to remember. The purpose of Tfilas Musaf is, oy vay, I wish I could be makriv the Karban Musaf. You know, the Karban Musaf is misdabek klal Yisrael ta'akadosh baruch hu. Don't give up the opportunity. Don't lose the opportunity. The purpose of reciting the Karbanos is to engender the genuine ratzon that you wish you could have been makriv the Karbanos. The incredible story in the Hakdama of the Shev Shmaitza, in the Ravcha the Shmaitza edition. I remember the Reb Aryeh HaKohen, the author of the Shev Shmaitza, he was so poor, and it was so freezing in his house, he had to sleep with the inkwell under his arm so that the ink wouldn't freeze. Reb Aryeh HaKohen was zoicha that his 3 great svarim are neskabel b'ava in the Olam HaTorah more than any other svarim. Shev Shmaitza, Abnei Miluim, Ktsois HaChoishen. So they asked the Ktsois, how are you zoich? B'ma zochisa? Listen to this. He said 3 times in his life he was b'sakana gedola, and he had no choice, and unfortunately he had to eat on Yom Kippur, and in the zechus that he ate on Yom Kippur, he was zoicha to write 3 svarim that were neskabel b'chol Yisrael. I don't remember learning which zechus is it to eat on Yom Kippur. What's the big zechus of eating on Yom Kippur? Perhaps the pshat is that when the Ktsois HaChoishen fasted on Yom Kippur, even a Ktsois, when he fasts on Yom Kippur, at the end of the day, he's a Basar V'Dam. So to what level is that mitzvah able to achieve? A very high level. But when the Ktsois had to eat on Yom Kippur, and Nebuch, he was Mesoinen, I wish I could have fasted and been Mekayim, V'yinisem es nafshoy seichem. That was Oile l'Ratzain l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ki'ilu, he fasted, b'chol pratev, v'kavanaseh. That was the greatest zechus he ever did when he couldn't do a mitzvah. We've got a problem on our hands, because we have a guy by the name of Haman. And Haman, of course, comes from Esav. And Esav is armed. Esav is loaded. Esav is loaded with one of the greatest zechusim that anybody ever has. And that's the great zechus of Kibbut Avayim. Yaakov Avinu, Vayira Yaakov Ma'oid. The Rishonim say he was afraid of Esav's Kibbut Avayim. So who's going to match Esav's? Remember Reb Shimon ben Gamliel? Shimon Gamliel says, I don't come to the toenails of Esav when it comes to Kibbut Avayim. Reb Shimon Gamliel says, Esav would wear special begadim when he would serve his father. I can't even do that. I'm not on that madrega. So who's going to come close to Haman? Haman's coming armed. He's loaded with the highest caliber performance of Kibbut Avayim. In fact, so you say Kibbut Avayim is an easy mitzvah. Kibbut Avayim is one of the hardest mitzvahs to be Mekayim. The Gemara even says a frightening statement, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ashrei mi sheloi Haman. Fortunate is someone who never saw his parents, because it's such a difficult mitzvah to perform properly that it's a very big challenge. So who's going to match up and stand up to the Kibbut Avayim of Esav? So the Rebbeinu Shalom prepared and was mechin from before one individual who was able to be Mekayim, Kibbut Avayim, on the highest darga, even higher than Esav HaRasha. And who is that? Someone who never was Mekayim, Kibbut Avayim in their entire life. Someone who was so far removed from being able to be Mekayim, Kibbut Avayim. She never saw her mother. She never saw her father. So she never did it then. So she's the last? No. But says Rabbi Yonasan, in the heart of Esther, because she was so limited by circumstance her whole life, she was misoinen, she had a ratzain, she had a cheshek, she wished, if only I had parents, I could serve them, I could honor them, I could respect them, I could bring to them, I could serve them. And this ratzain, and this cheshek, and this desire was nechshav l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the highest darga of Kibbut Avayim ever performed, and she's the only one who could combat an Esav, combat a Haman. You know the Roikeach says in the Megillah. How many times does Haman's name appear in the Megillah? 54 times. How many times does Esther's name appear in the Megillah? 54 times. One time Memuchan, one time Hadassah. Before we know her name is Esther, she's called Hadassah. Before we know his name is Haman, he's called Memuchan. They got to go head on. Esav is coming with his kibbut avayim that nobody ever performed, but Esther one-upped him. Esther is coming with her kibbut avayim that she never did, but she wished she did. You could be a Gadol Adar by learning Shas, and you could be a Gadol Adar by wanting to learn Shas. Now, you can't trick Hashem. If you never crack open the Gemara, you don't want to learn Shas. But if you really do want to know the Gemara, and you're making your best efforts, and you have a Ratzon to know Kol HaTorah Kula, mi yodeya, who's greater? That's the great Yesod of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz. And then Rabbi Yonasan says, well, let's talk a little bit about Mordechai. You see, Esther has great kibbut avayim, and she's going against Haman, who comes from Esav, who has great kibbut avayim. But the truth is, there's one little chisaron in Esav's kibbut avayim. Esav, you really honor your father? So why do you send Eliphaz to try to kill Yaakov? What kind of kibbut avayim is that? What do you think your father, you think he's going to feel good knowing that you sent Eliphaz to try to kill Yaakov? So that's a little bit of a chisaron in Esav's kibbut avayim. Esav says, I'm not worried about that. Because if you're going to point the finger at me that I don't treat my siblings well, and how did you treat Yosef? You're worse than me. All of you guys ganged up to get rid of Yosef. So don't point your finger at me, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, that I have a chesaron in my kibbut avayim. You have a bigger chesaron. You try to sell Yosef. So the Bnei Rachel raise their hand and they say, wait a second. Yosef and Binyamin have no role in the Mechiras Yosef. The reason why Esav will only be nafal into the hands of the Bnei Rachel is because the Bnei Rachel could point at Esav and say, Esav, there's a chesaron in your kibbut avayim, and Esav has nothing to say to them because they never took part in the Mechiras Yosef. Therefore, Mordechai has to come from Shevet Binyamin. Because Esther never was Mekayim kibbut avayim, she wanted to. Mordechai is from the Bnei Rachel, who have that hashlama of kibbut avayim that Esav is missing. And there's one more nakuda as Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, very interesting nakuda. One little zechus also that Esav has, that Amalek has. Where does Amalek come from? Mitzad Imai, from his mother's side. Timnah. We know Timnah tried to join the Jewish people, and the Avos told her to get lost. And that was Pagam. Chazal criticized the Avos for not accepting Timnah, for not accepting her as a ger. Yaakov Avinu didn't accept her, and she became a pelegish to Esav. And that's where Amalek came from. There's one Shevet in Klal Yisrael that was melumad and being Makabel Gerim. Shevet Yehuda, of course. Yehuda was Makabel Shua, Tamar. Boaz was Makabel Rus. Shlomo was Makabel Namaho Amoinis. The job of Shevet Yehuda was to be Mesakein the Ched of Yaakov, who was a Makabel Gerim. So it says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, let's paint the picture now. We have Mordechai against Haman. Haman mitzad Aviv is Esav, kibbut av. So Mordechai comes from Binyamin. He's the one, he did not participate in the Mechiras Yosef. Esav, Haman mitzad Imai from Timnah. So Mordechai mitzad Imai came from Yehuda's Makabel Gerim. So Mordechai is also Zel Umazeh Keneged Haman. So it's incredibly, the Raikach points out, how many times is Haman in the Megillah? 54. How many times Zeresh? 4. Total of 58. Mordechai? 58. By the way, now how many psukim are in the Megillah? 166 psukim in Megillah Esther. Keneged, the number of words in Chamishe Chumshe Torah that talk about Amalek. 119 words in the end of Beshalach, 47 words at the end of Kisetzei. Exactly. Every detail of the Megillah is measured. 54 Hamans, 54 Esthers. One Memuchan, one Hadassah, 4 Zereshes plus Mordechai, 4 Zereshes plus Haman equals Mordechai. But let's come back to this great Yesod. The Yesod of Rotzain, the Yesod of Cheshek. This is not just a Yesod in Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz. This is a Yesod in Yahadus in general. That a person has to accomplish and a person has to achieve. But besides what a person does, a person has to want. I wish, a person can be on a very high madrega. I wish I was on a higher madrega. I yearn to be on a higher madrega. I wish I davened even greater than I do. I wish I learned even better than I do. Rabbeinu Yoina, amazingly, Rabbeinu Yoina says that this Yesod is actually a mitzvah d'oraisa. Mitzvah d'oraisa? What mitzvah is this? Rabbeinu Yoina in the Shari Avodah, and he is meramis to this in the Shari Tshuva as well. Rabbeinu Yoina says in number 27, V'yachmoid v'yichsoif lahasig ba'avodah ma'shein yadoi maseges. A person should desire, a person should yearn to achieve what he's not able to. He says 4 lines down, likewise, you should do in every area that you haven't achieved. You should desire it. You should have passion for it. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, v'al habechira bilvad yekabel schar keilu hisig chemda. Just for wanting it, desiring it, you'll receive reward as if you achieved it. Ki habechira mitzvahs aseh, says Rabbeinu Yoina. There's a mitzvah in the Torah. It's a mitzvah that many don't even know about. I know every morning I have to put on tefillin, and I have to daven at least once midoraisa, and I have to be mekayim b'yahavta is Hashem Elokecha. But there's a mitzvah d'oraisa to want to reach levels that right now I'm not even able to reach. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, not only is it a mitzvah in the Torah, and if you want it, you get it as a reward. Chishev l'asais mitzvah, v'lo yasa, mala olav ki lo asa. With your permission, I just want to read to you from Rabbi Victor Miller's Sefer on Tefillah in English. That's the language he wrote it in. I heard many people are familiar with this language. They translated it into Lashon HaKodesh, but this is the original. Okay, this is how I got it. Rabbi Miller writes that one of the chief and main principles and functions of davening. What am I davening for? I'm davening to rebuild Yerushalayim. I'm davening for Parnasa for Klal Yisrael. I'm davening to heal all of Klal Yisrael. One of the main functions of davening is to exercise this mechanism. I could be a doctor. I could be the best doctor in the world. I could be the most altruistic person in the world. I want to heal all the Yidden. Fine. So how many people am I going to heal today? So I go to one hospital and I try to heal 7 people. And then I go to another, I have 5 people. So you heal 12 people, very nice. But if you daven rifa'enu with real kavanah, that I wish I could cure all the Chayle Yisrael, can you imagine what type of reward you're tapping into to engender a real Ratzain to be merape all Yidden? And imagine you go up to Shammai and the Rebbeinu Shalom says, Rabbi Yid, I want to reward you. You built the Beis HaMikdash. Built the Beis HaMikdash? Where? I lived in Passaic. No, every day when you said, you genuinely prayed and davened and beseeched to have this chos to rebuild Yerushalayim. So you wanted it. And if you want it, I'll reward you as if you did it. Here's the guy, he's the biggest shadchan. He made, how many shidduchim this year? 60 shidduchim. Big deal. But that guy davening, he davened that the Rebbeinu Shem should be mezaveg all Yidden looking for their shidduch. And he wanted it. And he did the best he could. So he's rewarded as if he accomplished all of this. The ability to achieve through the mechanism of chishev lasos mitzvah v'lo asa is lo yu'uman ki yisupar, is incredible. There are no limitations. There are no limitations in this area of avodas Hashem. In Maisa, we're all limited. We're all limited by our human shortcoming. But in activating Chishev Lasos Mitzvah, your soul could soar ad ein Shiur. Could we suggest then that one of the great avodas of Purim, Nichnas Yayin Yatsa Soid, we drink Yayin and we bring out, Rav Hutner writes, Megillah Esther. We reveal the hidden cheshek, the hidden ratzoin, the hidden desire that we all have of Ritzoineinu Lasos Ritzoincha. But sometimes we need a day of Purim to bring out, to focus, to elevate, to activate the real Ritzoinos that we have in our heart. So I remember I once went to a shiur in Queens. So there are a lot of Sfardim in Queens. Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef once came to the shiur. He once came to America, and he was giving a shiur. He said, does anybody in the crowd know what siman in Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Dagim are in? Nobody knew. So he says, Parsha, Pei Gimel, Rashi Tevos, gefilte fish. So people were laughing. So he said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes, all the simanim in Shulchan Aruch are in Baruch HaKodesh. For example, Hilchos Shofar, Siman Tav Kuf Pei Vav, Gematria Shofar. Reish Samach Gimel is Hilchos Halakas Neiros in deference to Reb Sadia Gaon. He went through a whole slew of Ruach HaKodesh in the simanim of Shulchan Aruch. So Mavra said, Reish Pehei, Rafa, it's Rafa Biyadenu, you know. There are a lot. And what siman in Shulchan Aruch is the mishteh of Purim? Teratzeh, the ratzain of a yid. This is what you should want. Teratzeh. This is teaching you what your ratzain should be. To bring out, everybody wishes, everybody wants, but sometimes it's buried. And through the avodah of Purim, it's a big inyan. Not just an inyan, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. It's an incredible way to achieve tremendous madregos. Look how the Rebbeinu Shem had to prepare the Geula of Klal Yisrael. Not through someone who was mechabed of Imai, through somebody who wished they were mechabed of Imai. May we all be zoicha that our true ratzon come out this Purim. We should be zoicha to bring out the Ritzoineinu Lasos Ritzoincha, the Teiratze, and the Megillah Esther. May the Rebbeinu Shem bring out of all of our hearts the Ratzoin, Lehiskarev Elav, Velasos Ritzoinai, B'leiv Avshalim. Thank you so much.
Doesn't say it's greater than it was done. It says that they might not do it right.
They might not do it right.
Then it's done. It says because there's this. He seems to say just because you're not going to do it right.
Because the
challenge is who could be Yetzi, they stuck.
Yeah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.